Hi guys, we're going to start by going over some of Chapter 6. This chapter is a bear. So it's a good thing that you have your exams from last week behind you, even though I know last week's chapter was pretty intense also. This chapter is a step up from bones. We're talking about muscles and the muscular system, and your textbook groups it all into one big chapter for you. So not only are you learning the microscopic stuff, the physiology, but you're also going through all of the muscles and muscle groups. So we'll kind of go through this step by step and looking at it. The first couple pages, 154 and 155, go through the basics of muscle tissue, which is a little bit of review from Chapter 3, where you were going through and understanding the different types of tissues, and it briefly went over the different types of muscle tissue there. So that should be a little bit of review for you. Then you get into page 156 and 157. Again, most students see this page and think, sweet, there's not that much to read. I'm just going to read the few paragraphs at the top and move on. That's not what you should do with this page. In fact, those pictures there are super important. Understanding the organization of the muscle tissue is very important to understanding the physiology of the muscles and how they flex and how they work and how you get the contraction and the whole excitation, contraction, coupling, and all of that occurs in this cycle. So understanding how those groups are put together is very important. If you take a look at that picture there on page 156, for example, it's showing you the humerus bone, and then it's showing you the biceps, I'm assuming, the biceps muscles on the humerus. And that's that kind of first top section. And you can see within the muscle itself there are these bundles, and then within the bundles there's bundles, and then within those bundles there's little kind of strands. And those strands are the individual muscle cells. Muscle cells are also called muscle fibers. So, and I go over all of this in my lecture, so make sure you watch it. But that picture there really puts together how your muscles are arranged in that kind of orderly fashion. The picture on the next page is showing you the internal organization of these muscle cells. So inside the muscles, there's more bundles and strands and stuff. So it's important to understand how all of that fits together, because if you don't understand that part, then you're not going to understand how the muscle actually contracts, which is coming up on the next page. The page 158 and 159 diagram out and show you how the muscle cells actually contract. You can see the breakdown of the sarcomeres on page 158 and see how those cross bridges form and the shortening of the sarcomeres individually. But on page 159 there's another great chance for you to do a flow chart. A nice little cyclic nature there with that diagram, and you can just boom, 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 one action per card or one picture per card, maybe even draw it out, shuffle them up, see if you can put them in order. Super important that you understand the contraction cycle of the muscle and how that works. Then you're getting into how the muscles know when to contract, how the skeletal muscles, I should be more specific, how the skeletal muscles know when to contract. And that's diagrammed out for you on page 160. You see the neuromuscular junction, the influx of calcium, the outflux of acetylcholine binding to receptors, sodium rushing in, etc., etc. That's all diagrammed out for you on page 160 and 161. Again, great opportunities for a flow chart and diagramming from those two pages. You then see the kind of energy usage on page 162. I lost my train of thought there. Page 162 shows you how the ATP is being used and how creatinine phosphate can be used for energy as well in the muscle cells. So those are other diagrams that you can redraw and recreate to help understand the ATP and how the energy really comes to play in the muscle cells. Again, notice when I'm going through these chapters, I'm mostly focusing on the pictures. It's because the pictures are the most important part. That's why the author and the editors put them in there. So make sure you pay attention to those pictures. The next page, 164, is going through different actions of a muscle. So if just one or a few muscle cells are contracting, we call that a twitch, a single muscle twitch. You can get something called wave summation or tetanus, fused tetanus or complete tetanus. So make sure you understand the difference there, and there's a nice little graph for those of you who are mathematically minded. That graph might help you. The next section goes into smooth muscle and how smooth muscle is different from skeletal muscle, and it contracts much differently. It kind of contracts as like a glob instead of a nice short segment. It's more blobby, I guess, if you would say that. Then cardiac muscle, finally. Cardiac muscle, which is highly branched, connected through intercalated discs, very different because it's a totally different function than skeletal muscle. The next section of your book goes through all the different muscles. Yep, you gotta know them. However, for the lecture portion of the class, I'm not going to give you a diagram. I'm not going to say label these muscles or which muscles are in the proximal forearm or whatever. I wouldn't go through that much. But I might say which one of these is not a flexor of the thigh. And so you kind of have to know what muscles are there. They'll be listed for you so you can recognize them, but you do need to know the actions of the muscles. I'm not going to test you on the origins or insertions of them, which are all in the charts that are on the subsequent pages there. I'm not going to test you on those things, but definitely the actions and the locations, where they are. Which one of these is not a muscle of the upper arm? Which one of these is not a rotator of the shoulder? Which one of these muscles assist in smiling, right? Any of those questions are fair game and may appear on a test or quiz. So again, all of the muscles are listed there. I say all of them. Not every single muscle in your body is listed on these pages. These are just the major ones that are listed for you. There are, I think, 222 muscles, something like that. And you don't have to know all of them, but you do need to know the major ones. The last little section of the book, of this chapter, again, is just going through all of the muscles of the lower legs and feet for you to review. There's checkpoints along the way. There are lots of great resources out there to help you study muscles, and one of them obviously is your lab book, which has a lot of diagrams and stuff in there for you. I told you I'm not giving you diagram type questions, but just to familiarize yourself with the muscles, just like I suggested with the bones. Go to the dollar store, buy a cheap skeleton, and just write the muscles on there. Write the muscles that are associated with the shoulder, on the shoulder, right? So on and so forth. There's lots of ways for you to study interactively instead of just reading and reading and reading the book and staring at the pages and falling asleep. Studying should be active. The more active you are while you're studying, the more likely you are to remember it. So good luck. Make sure you ask me if you have any questions, and I will talk to you guys later.